I love having these conversations with you because we're two Americans from two totally different places in the States. And as a Californian, I would feel weird referring to somebody as a redneck.
Hey, what's up, guys? Foster here. Just a quick note before we get started today. This week, we are having conversations with another English teacher, Christina Lorimer. Christina is simply one of the smartest, most interesting, and thoughtful teachers that I have met in a long, long time. And I think you will really enjoy these conversations as much as I did. So, after a quick word from our sponsors, we will get on with the show.
Hey, hey, everyone! Bom, estou aqui para falar sobre o nosso querido Cambly. Para quem está começando hoje esse podcast, bem-vindo, e nós temos uma novidade para você. Você que sempre procurou uma plataforma online de inglês para ter aquela conversa muito legal com algum falante nativo de inglês, chegou a sua hora. O Cambly é uma plataforma de inglês online maravilhosa. Você vai lá no cambly.com ou no aplicativo do Cambly e você pode filtrar de acordo com as suas necessidades. Então, digamos que você está procurando alguém para te ensinar mais gramática ou ter alguma melhora no vocabulário sobre botânica. Qualquer coisa desse gênero e super específica, o Cambly pode te dar. Uma das coisas mais legais é que tem professor quase 24 horas por dia. Então, se você precisa se preparar, por exemplo, para uma reunião, para uma apresentação ou coisa parecida e quer treinar naquele dia, um pouco antes ou um dia antes, você entra na plataforma, escolhe um professor e começa a falar. Lembrando que não adianta saber inglês se você não consegue falar. O Cambly tá aí para isso. Então, para você ganhar uma aula de inglês de graça com o Cambly, é só colocar o nosso cupom Inglês no Icru Podcast. Mais uma vez, Inglês no Icru Podcast. Vai lá no cambly.com ou no aplicativo do Cambly e coloca nosso cupom Inglês no Icru Podcast. Now, on with the show.
I have one for you. How do you tell students to translate caipira?
Depends. So I always use it coming from my personal perspective, my background. I'm from South Carolina, so I'm a redneck. My parents are rednecks. I don't speak like a redneck nowadays because I've been teaching for a long time. But if you had a conversation with my parents, you would say in a loving way that they are rednecks.
It's not an offensive term to you?
Totally depends on the context. So when people are asking how to translate this, I have to give all of this context,
Sure.
which I think Kaipita could be very similar in that way, you know? My hunch, obviously, I've never lived in Sao Paulo or in the interior of anywhere, but I kind of have the hunch, the feeling that Kaipita can be a positive thing or a negative thing, depending on who's talking about it and to whom.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is
I
that is
mean,
that right?
I'm sure we would have to ask, go to the heart of the matter and ask people who are there, but, um, I think it's more positive than I actually think it's kind of neutral. So, like, you have, like, frango caipira. You have, like, you know what I mean? It's
True.
you and I would this is why I was asking because I would never really say, like, redneck chicken.
Yeah. I think you would say like country chicken,
Yeah.
like a good old country boy, you know?
Yeah. So, so I've always thought that was interesting, but sure, I mean, if somebody is using it as an insult, it's gonna be insulting. Like, "Hey, you're so caipira." I don't know if that happens, but
Yeah. I mean, it's strange. Like my dad and all his friends, he's the first one to admit he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a redneck from South Carolina. That's the way I am." But if
yeah.
he's watching the news and then he's like, "These global elitists are calling me a redneck and I work hard."
Yeah.
And it's like,
Well,
ugh,
sure.
that's
Or,
confusing.
like, it's like those rednecks or, like, it's I love having these conversations with you because we're two Americans from two totally different places in the States. And
Yeah.
as a Californian, I would feel weird referring to somebody as a redneck. Like I
Mhm.
would feel like I was insulting them or it was offensive. And therefore I get really hesitant to teach students that word, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I don't think we can overstate how different our places of origin are, probably. I've never been to California,
Really?
which blows all of my students' minds. All of my students have been to California.
Is it not shocking that I have not been to the South, really?
Um, no, although we're getting on the map nowadays.
Can
Charleston's
I,
really getting up there.
can I tell a funny story?
Absolutely, please.
So Fulbright brings over a group of Fulbrighters, right, from the United States. So they're, Americans from different universities all over the country. And we go to Brazil and we have an orientation together. There's about 30 of us. And then everybody goes their separate ways. You meet up halfway through the year
Mhm.
and sometimes at the end, I don't remember. And so I clicked with two other girls, two other Fulbrighters. And actually, I would say I clicked with a sort of group of folks. And we were from different places around the States. And one of these Fulbrighters, she was placed in Curitiba.
Mhm.
And halfway through the year, some of us went and visited her. And so we were from Kentucky, California, Florida, and then Puerto Rico. We were a pretty diverse group because I was like white middle class Californian. We had my friend from Kentucky. She was actually Ecuadorian and she moved to the States when she was 13.
Wow.
We had an African American younger guy from Florida, and then we had a gay Puerto Rican. It was like we were like,
Just
"This is
running the gamut.
America,"
That's
and
awesome.
so we gave like cultural lectures at this university in Curitiba. And in one of them, I distinctly remember I was sitting on a desk next to my friend, and she was from Kentucky. And a student asked her, "What do people in Kentucky think about Californians?" And we were good friends, so we just.
Right.
And she said, "Well, um, most people in Kentucky think that Californians are sort of arrogant and just think, they just think the whole country revolves around them." And I was like, "All
Right.
right, all right." And then she asked me, and she said, "What do Californians think about people from Kentucky?" And without thinking, I just said, "We don't." I've never thought about someone from Kentucky in my entire life.
I mean, that's
And
very,
then my
very
friend, she was like, "Sí, está vendo." This is what I'm talking about. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're totally right."
Oh, man. Yeah, it's wild. It's wild. A lot of people I know in South Carolina pretty literally think that California should be a nation of its own
So
and
do
just
we. How convenient.
separate from the US. And yeah, I should
Yeah.
visit it sometime. I've always wanted to go.
When you do, you let me know because I've got the whole state covered.
Awesome. Awesome. I will. Yeah. So that's awesome. The United States is a very, very diverse place. But let's try to bring it back to Brazil a little bit. So you spent, it seems like a year and a half in the interior of Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
And did you end up staying there? That was what, 2012? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that year, I also traveled a little bit. So I got like a pretty general vision. I went to Brasilia a couple times for conferences, Rio, Curitiba. I had a friend in Londrina.
Mhm.
I went back to Salvador that year to visit some people. Where else did I go? Sao Paulo a couple times. But I didn't stay because I had done everything I could do visa wise. So I was on a researcher visa with my Fulbright,
Mm-hmm.
and I got a prorrogação. I got an extension. So I did not. I didn't stay. I actually ended up moving back to California and living for the first time in San Diego. And I worked at San Diego State University in their intensive English program for 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a cool job for me because it was the first time I had taught English for academic purposes. And although I sort of missed working with Brazilians, a lot of the same sort of university academic Brazilians that I was working with on my Fulbright ended up coming to the States for Ciências Sem Fronteiras.
Right.
And they came to my program. I mean, not only to my program, but we got a
Yeah.
group of unbelievably on top of it, smart, dedicated, amazing Brazilian university students. So for a good chunk of that time, I was working with students from all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
Saudi Arabia and China in particular, because I worked in a English for academic purposes program.
Right.
And I still got to work with Brazilians. So it was a pretty cool job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So nowadays, do you live? I know you're in the States right now, but
Yes.
are you back and forth? Do you live in the States full time?
So
What's
let me link it for you. I'm going to try to finish this chronological explanation of
perfect? Lay it out
actually,
for me.
because my life now has nothing to do with where I left off.
Yeah. You've done a
So
lot.
yeah. So San Diego State University, 2013 to 2016. Now, in the beginning, I didn't really have intentions of going back to Brazil. Um, it was always a place that I loved, but I sort of
Right.
felt like maybe my time has run its course with Brazil. Although I was in a relationship with a Brazilian at the time, and and
You had already stopped your ban on only dating Hispanic
yes,
speakers.
it had long been stopped. So he went back to Brazil. I ended up not going. Stayed in San Diego. And then after my second year there, I decided I wanted to start my own business because I had still been doing so many things I was doing on my Fulbright, a lot of translation, a lot of private teaching. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is a thing, something's happening here. And I was not, I loved my job. I loved my job there, but it was not enough for me. Like, I didn't want to eat lunch in a cold lunchroom. I didn't want to be doing participation points for students. I thought that was stupid. And I was spending so much time doing grading and participation points. I had a lot of meetings that I thought were unnecessary. And I was doing as much work as I had always done, but it wasn't mine. I was
Right.
developing curriculum, but I couldn't keep it. I was gaining students, but I couldn't keep them.
It's
Now,
not your
it
thing. Yeah.
wasn't my thing. I wanted to grow my own thing. So I started that. And in 2015, excuse me, I organized for myself a sort of 3-month tour, if you will, of Brazil doing academic writing workshops. So with the contacts I still had on the Fulbright and anyone else who I could muster up,
Hmm.
I basically sent out an email and I said, I want to come to Brazil. I'm going to do an English for academic purposes workshop, mini course. I'm going to focus on um, writing scientific and academic articles to publish in high impact journals and speaking in public to present your research at international conferences. So I developed this niche and I thought that was what I was going to do with my business, but I wanted to shop it a little bit and do a
Right.
needs assessment first.
Right.
And so I ended up doing 22 workshops in 5 different states in Brazil
Yeah.
for 3 months. I was all over the place. I was in Belém do Pará. I was down in Mato Grosso do Sul. I was all over the country.
You can totally tell that you have a strong background in education and academics,
Yeah.
whereas I went to business school. And the last time we talked, you're like, "Why did you name your company English no Cruel?" And I was like, "I don't know." You're like, "I ran 22 focus groups all across the country." Needs to
Yeah. It was awesome because I ended up, finagling, which is a fun word, finagling housing with students or directors or professors. And so I had hundreds of conversations with Brazilians and learned a lot about what I was going to do and not do in my business.
Mm-hmm.
Important turning point in the story was the last stop was in Minas Gerais, and in Belo Horizonte, I was there. It was August now of 2015, I think.
Okay.
Yes. And one of my, because, some university was on greve, there was some university strike. And so my workshop got canceled. And I was super excited because I wanted to know everything about Belo Horizonte, and I had like one day.
Right.
So I went into the city. I'm at a cafe called Café con Letras. Anyone from BH will know where that is. And I'm just working there on my business. And this adorable human being walks in and sits next to me. And we start chatting. And he has also started his own business. And he's also gorgeous and amazing. And we hit it off. We end up hanging out that whole day. And then I leave.
Hey guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of Inglês no Rádio. If you like what we do, if you want to support the show, here's what you can do. Leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Android, wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps other people discover the show. And you can sign up for our VIP newsletter. So each time we release new courses, early discounts for Sound School, new worksheets, special discounts, the people on our newsletter are the first to know. So if you are interested in the things we are doing, go to inglesnuecru.com and sign up. And as always, keep up the good fight and lose well. Até já.